and welcome to Talk Time. This week, we'll be talking about some developments in the new Patriotic Party. Some very, very interesting developments. Welcome to Talk Time.
Ha! How can we have some local fast food? Baba, me again. Let's go yale. Me quite remember. Oh, hear me. Meant me and my friend doctor when I'm crossing over. See what was swearing. She has malaria. Malaria. Oh, what they say? What the router? Me copy the ambulance. A drone a friend router mix. Yeah, come and ready a draw and running router. So.
Trap and the draw abaso body assay. Wabo Ruta mixture abaso. Ruta natural products and one Ruta mixture. Yeah, you could see a treat. Ruta tonic and the Ruta life one. And who a feeling like the bunny, a fin pedium. That's support the immune system. Ruta de Obiasia, FDA, and the drinking crap to your two.
Welcome back to Talk Time. As I indicated from the very beginning, we are going to be talking about some very, very interesting developments in the new Patriotic Party. And we're going to be talking about somebody who is himself very, very interesting. We have in the studio Mr. Buaben Asamoa, who actually used to be the Director of Communications of the new Patriotic Party. Now the party says that he has been sacked. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes. Have you really been sacked from the party?
It's sack. Perhaps we have to look at whose benefits that goes to, because the rules of the party constitution say that per certain conduct, you can lose your membership automatically. Mm-hmm. You can resign. You can be suspended. You can be. How do you, when you leave school, what do you, is it when you are sacked from school, how do they call it?
Suspended?
No, suspended. There's a bigger one, post-suspended.
Oh, wow. Expelled?
Expelled.
Yes.
Yes. But in our case, there's a particular provision which says that if you are within the party and you do not support the party's choice of leader, and you choose to either set yourself up against that leader as an independent or follow somebody to support that person, then you automatically forfeit your membership of the party. So we, the so-called Gang of Four, have forfeited our membership by virtue of following Mr. Chirematin into his bid to become an independent presidential candidate. The interesting thing is, why publish it? Just like you said, to create a public impression of a sacking. And that is where the disingenuousness of the party hierarchy who promoted that thing comes up. We believe it's simply to dissuade other people from following us, because people may get frightened with the unknown. Hey, what happens? I'm in the comfort of the MPP, and then I go and follow Mr. Chirematin and the people who are following him, and I get sacked. Then I'm caught in between. What happens to me? So it's instrumental. It's designed to stem the flood of.
But there are thousands of people out there in the street who are members of the NPP who are declaring support for Mr. Chirematin.
That is the
Why
point.
only 4 or 5 of you?
Yes, because you always want to signal. It's when you have a figurehead. The 4 who have been singled out, obviously, are leaders. These are huge personalities, and they have followings. So if such a leader, such a powerful person can be sanctioned, if such a person can be thrown out, then the man in the street, the thousands in the street you are talking about, if they have genuine or deep MPP sympathies, may then be frightened that if YB can be thrown out, if Siddiq Abubakar Boniface can be thrown out with his stature, his weight. If a former general secretary, can be thrown out, then it means I am chicken feed. I will just be squashed. So it's best I sit still in the party. That's what they seek to achieve, but it won't work.
But isn't there an element of unfairness? So selective application of the law?
Not really. I think what,
because there are thousands of people who are doing what you have done.
Yes, I think what has happened, and why I think the party has goofed, is that they haven't demonstrated leadership. Ankwesi, frankly, there's a crisis of leadership in this country at this time. There's a genuine crisis of leadership where the signaling is not in a direction favoring integrity or principle. Because if we're in a voluntary organization, why suppress thinking? Why suppress objectivity? Like you're saying, the thousands in the street, what are you telling them by signaling that you have sacked somebody from the party? You intend to make a statement of what kind? So it means that you are now feeling the impact, the effects of going through a process to select a leader for the party, which process hasn't met a standard of integrity, a principle of objectivity. You understand? And the fallout from that process, you are now trying to manage with suppression. You are trying to manage the fallout of what you did to elect or your current flag bearer with suppression. I will squeeze you if you miss. If you don't conform, I will squeeze you. I don't think that's the way leadership, political leadership should go. Political leadership should be expansive. Political leadership should be inclusionary. At this particular time in Ghana, political leadership should be of integrity, clearly signaling that the best way to go is to be objective, is to be transparent before the people. I don't think the MPP leadership at this time has the boldness and the courage to tell the public that they are objective, that they have the integrity to back the selection process that they have gone through. And now they are trying to suppress thoughts about it. Because Alan's action is a thought. I think what you have done is not right. I'm exercising my right to be a choice. Because after all, what we are doing is to offer the people of Ghana choices. Come 7th December. The party vehicle is one way of offering a choice. Being independent is another way of offering a choice. Ultimately, it is the Ghanaian voter who will determine the best come 7th December. So if the party, a huge organization, which arrogates to itself the right to make a choice for a larger number of people, that's a leadership principle. You are leading a number of people, and those people are looking up to you to give them somebody to lead them. And you twist and turn the way to get to that choice, then it means you are actually not giving them a choice. You are imposing something on them. And that imposition, if particularly the possibility is that that person may not even be acceptable to the majority of Ghanaians, then it means that you've done something that is self-serving. You've done something that's selfish. You haven't exercised your leadership with integrity. Then you have crisis. You have leadership crisis. And that is why we believe that the best way of showing service to the people of Ghana now is to stand up for principle, is to do our duty as leaders. Our duty is to demonstrate to the people that we are principled and that we are prepared to courageously stand up for that principle by offering them a choice which the party process did not offer them. And that is why we've decided to follow Mr. Chematin. I think the best way forward for the party would have been to keep quiet and watch everybody make their choices. Instead, the speed with which the butterfly is flying has compelled them to make a statement. And what is that statement? If you don't conform, we'll suppress you. If you don't conform, we'll excommunicate you. And the fear, it's like a fear of hell. You haven't been to hell before, but the fear of hell keeps you in line.
Yeah.
So if you do as YB is doing, we will sack you. Then it means I support Mr. Martin, but let me not do what YB is doing.
Yeah.
In the short term, it means that maybe Mr. Martin may go out and people who love him in the party, because he's attracting support from all sides, but within the party may feel scared to come out. So you can create the impression that he doesn't have numbers.
But nobody would know when they are voting.
That is the point. That's what I'm saying in the short term.
So they
You
can
create
remain
the
in the
impression
party
that
and still vote for
it's a
Mr.
numbers.
Martin.
But in the long term, on 7th December, you arrive in the booth and you have the ballot paper of Mr. Martin on it, Alhaji Bawumia on it, former President Mahama on it, and the people decide that that's Martin that we want. Then all the suppression fails. All that they are doing now will fail at the ballot box.
Now, you've been a very important member of this party. I mean, Director of Communications is not a small position to hold in a party. Forfeiting your membership would certainly not be an easy decision. How did you make this apparently difficult decision?
Strangely enough, I didn't have to think too long about it. Because like I'm saying, I believe in public service. Most of my life, I've been in the political space. You are aware, we've been in there together on different sides of the same coin. We all seek political
Maybe sometimes
salvation.
on the same side.
On the same side.
Yes.
It could be preco and all that.
Yeah.
You know, but when you are in a group where exclusion continues and grows to the point that it becomes the norm, a big brother environment where one can hardly express oneself, it becomes a conformist organization, then it goes beyond a political party. It becomes a cult, literally. Double think and same think, 1984. The big brother is watching, so you have to double think and think back all the time, because you are afraid that if you show you are not conforming, you'll be discarded. And that is what our party has become over the years. You are being marginalized gradually and at some point discarded because you don't conform. And when you have that kind of capture within an organization, and you are principled, and you believe in what you are doing, it's easy to take the decision to step out and move on. Of course, most of my life has been in the MPP, but should it end with me sitting in there helplessly when people are being misled? That is the only question I have to answer. Would I best serve people as I've been serving them all my life by quietly sitting down when the wrong thing is being done? I didn't have to think too long to say no. The right thing must be done. And the right thing is that signal to the people the best choice, or at least offer the people a choice. So the MPP chooses to bring a choice based on a twisted process. Mr. Martin comes to you directly because the Constitution allows it. So you can then compare the choices of the MPP, twisted as it may have been, and that of Mr. Chemati, who used to be MPP, but has come to you directly. It offers the general electorate a choice, and that satisfies me.
Okay. Now, you have been a strong advocate for the MPP.
Yes.
You were not heard to have protested when Alhaji Bawumia was selected as running mate. You have even publicly defended him sometimes. Why have you come to the point where you think that he cannot be president?
Very well. It's very interesting because, you see, the MPP, like I said, is an organization with principles and therefore a culture. The culture in the MPP is that a presidential candidate, once selected, I call it a selection. Once selected, he goes through a electoral college. The college is small enough to be a selection process. Once selected, you are entitled to bring in your own
running mate,
irrespective of where the person is coming from. The principle being that the person is somebody you should be comfortable with. What is literally conventional and not codified, it's not law, it's not in the constitution, but very strongly felt, is that that person then doesn't develop any ambitions that are not sustainable for taking over the seat. In other words, you are encouraged to live with that person. And then if the person has an ambition, the person must come of their own accord, come in of their own energy and strength in a process that is open and fair to all. So at the time Nana Addo brought Dr. Bawumia, we are all aware of his background. Frankly, he didn't even have a party card. But Nana had stated that he wanted somebody to manage the economy directly. And financial persons with him knew Bawumia and thought that he would fit that bill perfectly. So bring him in. The party waived the rules about eligibility because we wanted to satisfy the candidate's need. Well, you want to give the candidate every opportunity to succeed. So he becomes vice president. During his tenure as vice president, it's my duty as a senior member of the party and as director of communications, as an MP, to ensure that his work succeeds.
Sure.
So, yes, I defended him because he had to succeed. But his terms of reference did not include the ambition to become president. So I didn't defend him to become president. I didn't defend him to build a CV for him to become president. So when he metamorphoses into that, and yes, you are entitled to, like I said, but this time with the unfair backing of the establishment, which resulted in the twisting of the process, then it's not acceptable to me. Because the twisting of the process to me means that we will not get the right result at the end of the day. So if it had been fair, if the establishment had stood back, if the presidency had stood back and said, well, I brought him, I have advised him to leave with me, he insists on running, let him run on his own steam, then perhaps the process would have been different. But when the establishment holds your hand and bulldozes you through and shuts everybody else down, then it's a corruption of the process that is not acceptable to right-thinking members of the party.
Well, viewers, we're going to take a short break. We are in conversation with Mr. Yaw Buaben Asamoa, my very good friend and strong MPP advocate, now flying with the butterfly. A short break, and when we come back, I'd like to find out what is it that is referred to as the establishment within the New Patriotic Party? Because all of us keep hearing about the establishment, what it is. Short break.
Trasacco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community off Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call
Hello, welcome back to Talk Time, and the conversation is with Mr. Yaw Buaben Asamoa, former Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party. Now, sir, you've been referring to the establishment. What is the establishment in the New Patriotic Party?
Okay. The establishment is actually not the party. The establishment is the government and how it's grafted onto the state. The party selects a presidential candidate and takes that candidate to an election. And if the candidate is successful, the candidate becomes president and takes over the executive authority of the state. Now, it is in the gift of that executive authority to make over 5,000, nearly 6,000 appointments within the state structure. Now, when you do that, that gift means a takeover of the state. So that is the establishment, the state, and the powers within all those state institutions. So you have the president, he has a cabinet, he appoints ministers to ministries. These are state institutions which determine policy, determine budget, determine spending priorities, and therefore there's a sense of largesse and patronage, and above all, the people look up to these ministries to deliver their needs. You have appointments to a large state quasi-commercial sector where you have companies and all that. Then you have state institutions which are not ministries but are agencies delivering very sensitive services to the people, close to the people, influence opinion of the people, and all those people are part of the establishment within the gift of the president. Then you have members of parliament who are elected by the people at local level but have to work closely with the executive because they also are fused with the executive because they end up being either ministers or deputy ministers or otherwise. So in a sense, the very essence of the state, what drives the entire nation, the thinking power of the nation, the resource base of the nation is in that huge setup, including MMDC leaderships and all that, who are all appointed by the president, and over which, because of the appointment and tenure reasons, the president can have subtle influence. That is the establishment. So when a signal is sent through that system and a majority of the system pick it up and choose to work with it because they want to be on the good side of the president, then you have the establishment using different ways and means of supporting what they believe is the choice of the president.
Why is the evidence that this establishment actually worked against other candidates and for Dr. Bawumia?
It's true I've been sacked, but sometimes some of the detail maybe. But this was a running battle to the extent that the president was compelled to say, no, I'm not supporting Bawumia. But let me give you one or two instances. Super Delegates Conference. You have 900 people going to have a vote, initial vote, to whittle down the numbers to five. Two critical decisions which could have made that election more transparent. One is to have it in one venue where you mobilize all 900 people. We've mobilized 6,000 people barely in last July, in one place. There's no COVID, 900 people. And say, no, decentralize it to every region. And in some regions, only 24 people are voting with all the paraphernalia. What does that mean? It means that you can have close control. And
well, at least you can identify how the voting went.
Exactly.
Which region voted for who.
Exactly. Close control. You can determine who votes for who and how the vote should go. You can insist that the voting should go in a certain way because you have smaller numbers and you have control. That was the first thing. The second thing was that there are 10. Whittle it down to 5. Ideally, what you should have done is that every voter should select 5. It's the most logical process. And that is what we do when we are selecting our vice chairpersons. We have 3 vice chairpersons and as many as 7, 8 people vie for it. Then you select 3 and you cross-tabulate. The highest number becomes the first vice. The second highest becomes the second vice. The third highest becomes and then there's a cutoff. The rest go away. So if 900 people are voting, logically they should vote for 5. You cross tabulate, and then the top 5, and then the others drop out. They say no. Everybody should vote for one person. Everybody should vote for one person. But what happens if there's a tie? Oh, we don't care. We will go and do the whole process all over again. We'll vote again. And you take this proposal to National Council and it's knocked off because the perception is that this is what they need to get their candidate, their preferred candidate in place. So what happens? You go and have the election, and indeed there's a tie. And now they are flabbergasted. They have to go back to 16 regions with the paraphernalia, the electoral commission, the police, and all that. How do you resolve the tie? So they unilaterally, again, sit in a room and take a decision that we will sit here and break the tie. Only 31 of us will vote. That's against the 900. So a senior member says, where's the principle?
Yeah.
How can I lend myself to this farce? You are changing the rules all the time?
In the middle of the game.
In the middle of the game? It's not acceptable. I won't do it. Without blinking an eye, they accept his withdrawal and move on. You know? So these are some of the things that, on the face of it, it's clear. It demonstrates the intent of the party to make sure that the right decision, in their opinion, the right decision being the pre-selected person that comes into authority. And people are doing it, like I said, in the gift of their power, where they sit, because they think that's what is expected of them. So it doesn't only come with where they sit, it also comes with resources. It comes with resources. So people are also exerting resources independently of the candidate, on behalf of the candidate. So if you are fighting that candidate, it means that you are fighting several centers of power. You are fighting several centers of power, all of whom have the capacity and might to damage you. And you become a lone ranger in that process.
But how did somebody like Mr. Lanche Martin become such a lone ranger, given the record, his record in the party?
Sometimes,
1992, he was there. He contributed financially, he contributed intellectually, has always been there. How does he all of a sudden becomes the lone ranger against the establishment?
It wasn't sudden. That's why sometimes I think whether or not he should have taken certain steps. And I wonder whether those steps wouldn't have broken up the party earlier. Because it's been a process. There's always been a tension in the party in terms of the constituent groups. This is a coming together of the UNC and the PFP. And right from the beginning, the UNC appears to have taken a lead when Professor Yaw Buaben was selected. I mean, you are familiar with that history. You were prof, literally you were prof secretary at some stage, you know. And when Prof lost out the first time, the idea was that it wasn't fair. And therefore, the next time, the primary was in 94, the Prof's people, including Nanado, insisted that once the first one was unfair, he should be allowed to try it again. And if I may say, the PFP group held by Kufuor said no, it's an election, let's all go back. And then Kufuor won. So then next time Kufuor wanted to come back, they said no, this is still an election, so we also challenge you. Nana challenged Kufuor and lost. It created a furore to the point where Kufuor had to concede a certain situation to Nana that, oh well, after me, obviously you will be in a good position to take over. So informally, a sort of queue was created. Fast forward, by 2007, when Kufuor was leaving and we had the Congress, again there was a situation, and Alan voluntarily gave it up in the belief that going forward he would have a fair opportunity at it again, because it had been fair and it had not been conclusive. But instead of going through to the end, he said, okay, you are my big brother, take it. So he takes it and he makes a pronouncement. Nana makes a pronouncement that, oh, just as Kufuor assured me informally, it's not a rule. I believe that in future you are the one who is going to take over after me. But after that, there was a concerted process of taking over the party and excluding Alan supporters over the years. I have been a victim. Since then, I've been a victim, being seen as an Alan boy of that kind of gradual exclusion. So, over time, it wasn't sudden. There was a time in this party, in the first administration, 2016, 2017, when people were afraid to be seen talking to Alan. Alan would come to Parliament. I was an MP, and he would be in the chamber, and people would pretend he wasn't there because they didn't want to be seen, to be close to him. You understand? Mm-hmm. So it is not a case of. So the question I ask myself: should he have stood up and rebelled against the party process at that? And in that case, what would have happened? Would the party have broken up? And what right would he have been asserting? So by the time we get to this point, clearly the grip of the president is consolidated. I mean, in 2014, we saw what happened in Tamale. He came back. The elected officials he said he couldn't work with were pushed aside. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Kufuor in the last one. He installed the chairman of his choice. So he had a complete control of the party by that time. So then, like I said, the establishment is aligned. The party is aligned. Mm-hmm. So at what point does Alan mobilize? And when he does mobilize, to what end? So only very bold souls, not timorous souls, mm-hmm. could have stood up and said, we are Alan. At a point in time, it was to say you were Alan in this party was as if you were declaring for the devil. You were treated as an outcast. And then if you know our album process, you know, we compile mm-hmm. An official of the electors, the officials, 200,000 of them, every 4 years. And gradually, every time that process happened, people who were supposed to be allied to Alan were pushed out. You know, it's a very subtle process. Mm-hmm. Yes, but it all culminated in this, that you couldn't guarantee that what was going to happen wouldn't happen. And what was going to happen was that it was clear that the instruction was to go this way and not to Alan. And by that time, he just didn't have enough forces because his base had been eroded. Yes.
Well, another short break, and when we come back, a new element has been thrown into the conversation. The PFP, United National Convention, UNC dimension has been thrown in. We would explore that a bit. Short break. Well, welcome back to Talk Time. And before we went on break, the UNC PFP dimension had been thrown in. Now, that dimension, how does it express itself fully? Sometimes it's expressed as Kufuor Edubuahini. Sometimes it's expressed as Kufuor Akufo-Addo. Sometimes it's also expressed as Achim Asante. And what is it? What is it?
I think the degenerative form of it is the Achim Asante, and I don't subscribe to that. I think it's a question of descent and mm-hmm. a struggle for leadership, as far back as the Buzia cabinet, where Victor Owusu and Adade were seen as the two power houses, mm-hmm. you know, and Adade developed a following, including the Apia Menka line. And Victor developed the following, including Kufuor. So as time went on, Kufuor is automatically seen to have inherited Victor Owusu's mantle. Mm. And in the beginnings, in 1979, when the military were leaving, the story is told that Pawili, who was head of the UNC, was offered the opportunity to restart the process, as we always do after. And Pawili didn't accept the offer initially, and then Victor went ahead to start, and then Pawili then decided that he wanted to, and Victor refused to concede the leadership to him. So Pawili then said, okay, then I'll also do my own. So more or less the schism at that time was about not necessarily tribal, but the right to lead the institution, the new institution, and they couldn't resolve that effectively well. So you established that. It just happened maybe that it broke up along tribal lines, because you had the majority of the Achims going into the UNC, you had the majority of the Ashantis going to the PFP, but they were still cross alignments.
But the PFP was clearly the dominant line.
It was.
The election results proved that it was the dominant line.
It was. Yeah. But then look at what unfortunately happened. To come back and join the PFP, the UNC chose to support the Nkrumahist PNP, the People's National Party, led by Dr. Lehman. And it is because of the support of the UNC that Lehman won the runoff. And he rewarded them with cabinet positions. Prominent UNC functionaries were rewarded with cabinet positions.
Yeah, Harry Sawyer.
Harry Sawyer and others, Monifie and all those. So like you're saying, ideally, the PFP should have been the dominant line. But the leadership question broke them apart. And it's the same leadership question that has then come into this. Because Alan Chiremati insists that, and I believe him and I accept it and I know the history, because I knew Mr. Martin long before I became his political ally. I was in the party and wasn't even part of his political circle until I moved away from Alhaji Aliu and joined his political circle. But we were friends before that. Mr. Chiremati made his own way into the party. Mr. Chiremati led a group of young people in the party to establish the Young Executive Forum, which they used to support the party. Mr. Chiremati is not a creature of Kufuor. But because of that leadership situation, he is seen as being the inheritor of Kufuor's mantle, as being the next in line, and therefore as being the one who the establishment supported. You know, Kufuor insists he didn't. But the impression is created that Kufuor wanted to transfer power to his side through Chiremati. And therefore, Chiremati was a favored one in that election. So it's a struggle at leadership level, and it always requires personalities. The mantle will fall on personalities. So in this situation, Chiremati has inherited the PFP mantle, PP mantle, whether by default or design.
If you look at Alhaji Bawumia,
yes,
he cannot fit into the PFP mold and cannot fit into the UNC mold. In fact, there are many people who actually believe that his roots may be in the NDC.
It is a fact. His roots are in the NDC. I believe he is NDC. His wife has PNC roots. But that is why, in his case, it is clear and firm that he is not doing this by himself. He is doing it under the sanction and authority of the establishment, in this case, the president. I think the whole game is that the president seeks to transfer himself through Alhaji Bawumia in order to preserve the line. He doesn't want to cede the line to the other side. But that's the way I see it. And that the most convenient candidate for him was his vice president. And that's a big hill to climb in a party like the MPP, which is very conservative. Because there's no doubt about it. Bawumia's father was a member of the Northern People's Party, from which he defected after it became the United Party. And he then joined Nkrumah's government, and thereafter joined several governments, including the NDC, PNDC government, which metamorphosed into the NDC. And so it's clear that his roots are not MPP, and that he himself didn't have anything to do with the NPP in his time, right till the point where he was brought on board as vice president. So it's an imposition on the tradition, on the conservatism of the MPP, but it is a deliberate imposition by the president because he wants to preserve the succession in his own image.
Now, sir, we are here. How do you assess the chances of Mr. Tremati?
That's the most amazing thing, and one which the duopoly, it's a point the duopoly are missing. That after 8 elections, cyclically, the Ghanaian voter is questioning the value they are getting out of the
rotational system.
Of the rotation. They are not seeing it. So there's this gradual process. Indeed, I trace it back to 2013, the election petition, where we literally had the intestines and all dissected heavily. What was an election? What goes into an election? How an election is conducted and how power is transferred. And Ghanaians were glued to your TV screens for 8 months. It was like a soap opera. No work was going on. Government was at a halt. And people then understood the power of their thumb. By 2016, they were demonstrating that they knew what they wanted. So they voted against an incumbent by over 1 million votes. It doesn't happen in Africa. The governing party was so confident they were going to win that election. But they were overthrown by over 1 million votes and a large majority in parliament, where the people had decided that this was the way to go. Within just 4 years, they were rethinking, is this the right decision we have made? So the president's vote of 1 million is halved to 500,000, and he loses his parliamentary majority drastically, to the extent that the party choice in a constituency like Fomena, which is pure MPP, literally, the party choice is rejected in favor of the one the party has rejected, an independent. And it is that independent the party rejected who now comes into parliament and is able to support the party, not as a member of the party, but as an independent, and at the high price of the second deputy speakership. So the psyche of the people is changing. They end up supporting an opposition personality like Buaben to become speaker. So you have a situation where you have the NPP executive president, the clear electoral victory, and a less than convincing parliamentary support base. It's not even a majority. It's a hang parliament supported by an independent to make it a majority, a quasi-majority, and a speaker who is not even off his stock. So when you look at these dynamics, then you begin to realize that the ordinary voter is looking for something and is prepared to use their thumb to determine what that is. And therefore, I'm calculating that by 2024, when we go into this election, that voter will be looking at their projects that will bring them jobs, that will bring them a clear program for dealing with their everyday problems. They will not look only at the party. And even if they do look at the party, they will calculate, Mr. Mahama has been there before. Is he bringing anything new? Does his character show a difference? And already I can see the cracks. He's talking about cancelling this, repealing this. This is the old, come in, criminalize everything, start afresh, and afterwards you also criminalize, and the debt piles up. Because everything you are criminalizing is being borrowed. So, are the people going to accept this cancellation politics? Perhaps not. They look at Alhaji Bawumia. This guy is the one who was with Nana, and we have run into all these issues, and we are struggling with our daily lives, the economy and all that, and he was supposed to be the economy. Can we trust him with the future? Is he telling us anything that's different? Or is he just criticizing the one who he says is going to cancel things? Then let's look at Tremati. He was of the system. There was an assumption, virtually a certainty, that he would be the one. And he's the one we haven't tried in the executive office before. Now he's presented himself to us. This is his program. It speaks to our concerns. It speaks to jobs. It speaks to production. It speaks to markets. It speaks to the possibility that capital will be there to establish a functioning state. Let me try Trematin. It won't hurt me, because I've tried Buaben as speaker. I've had a hang parliament. So what's there to fear? Let me try Trematin as an independent, and let me vote for the MP of my choice. That is a major major evolution of the power of the thumb. And it can happen in Ghana because we have that kind of edge. I hear academics talk about duopolies are not easy to topple, and they cite Israel and Germany and all that. What they forget is that these are consolidated democracies. And right next door to us in Benin, they've had 2 independent presidents very recently. Well, they just decided to discard the party system. Even in France, they had an independent in Macron who put together a coalition and won. So I just have this feeling that you have a ramp who will definitely vote MPP. They are that, but they don't have the percentages. You have a rump who will definitely vote MPP, NDC, but they don't have that percentage. You have a large group of dissatisfied, maybe 2-3 time voters, maybe first time voters, maybe voted once, who are looking for something that is not related to the UNC PFP. That's not related to Rawlings and the NDC beginnings, and that has nothing to do with the history of these two, but has everything to do with whether or not this voting process actually brings benefits. And that group will vote for Chelatin. And they are a substantial group. They are a substantial group. They are what is being labeled as a third force. And it is gaining traction. Talk about a third force. So the question is Mr. Chelatin the natural beneficiary of that third force? How does he work himself into the forefront, the leadership of that third force? So you have a mutual need. The third force is fragmented. They will need a political heavyweight. Political heavyweight is Chelatin. He will need the numbers. So if you can get the third force fragmented as it's working with Mr. Chelatin, who is significantly, completely different in profile from all the previous independents. So you cannot use academic analysis of the track record of previous independents to determine Mr. Chelatin's fate as an independent. There's that variable about what has happened with him and his party, his substantial following within the party itself, and the process that made him become an independent. All those are things that work in his favor and demonstrate that he's a colossus who only needs to coalesce the middle ground, the third force. And I believe that that process will make him president.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
So very much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we've been in a conversation with Mr. Yaw Buaben Asamoa, former Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party, and now a butterfly. And he actually believes that they can fly. Please, we're watching you. Please stay with us, stay with TALKTIME, and stay with Pan-African Television, because we offer you the best in everything. See you soon. Bye-bye.